pleasure to see such a nice turnout. It's not easy on a Wednesday night. So we're going to talk about challenges in terms of digital challenges in our homes. With the understanding, I'm not going to spend time talking about the promises, talking about the advantages. Just tonight, I was able to take out some of my devices, and I was able to call up an old PowerPoint that when I suddenly realized that it was something I was asked to speak to the teachers about that I wasn't expecting to teach to them, to have to talk about. It's just an amazing thing to be able to look things up, and it's an incredible source for chesed and for learning and all kinds of good stuff. Rosh Hashanah Hirsch said it beautifully. He said that in dealing with any new technology, the challenge is isolation versus inoculation. From what I understand, most of you are living in a community where the choice has been not isolation, not have your kids have any devices at all, different ages for different people. But the question is inoculation. How do you inoculate them, given the realities that this has become part of our lives for good and for bad? First, I'm going to talk about some of the more subtle stuff. I'm not going to only talk about pornography, although that has taken its toll also. But let me start with the story from just Shabbos before last. I was at a Yachad conference, 1,000 people, an amazing experience in Stamford, Connecticut. And I spoke a number of times there. And Shabbos morning, there was a Rav in the audience. Must have talked at some point about how digital technology steals our time, sometimes from our children and from ourselves. So this Rav in the audience comes over to me, he has a special needs kid. He said, this year on Seder night, his 20-year-old daughter stole his afikoman. And she comes over to him, she says, listen, Tati, this is what I want. She says, I want 4 hours of your time without your smartphone. And it just cut through him like a knife. He had no idea that it was hurting her so much. He says she's a great kid, but he had no consciousness of how preoccupied he must always seem to her. And he went one better. He says, this was, I think, the 4th week in the Omer that he told me this story. He said that every Wednesday night, since the Seder, he goes out with her for 4 hours. Because he says, look, she wants my time. It's a gift to have a 20-year-old daughter who wants to spend time with me. He leaves his cell phone at home. He says, it's been wonderful. But the reason I'm starting with this story is because a lot of the stuff we do online is unconscious. Listen to this study. 2015 study found the following. They asked a bunch of people, how often do you check your cell phone every day? Okay? And the average person said about 37 times a day, just for a few seconds. But then they had a way to check to see how many times did they really check their cell phone, okay? And they found the real number was 85. The average person checked their phone once every 11 minutes. But it goes even beyond that. So a lot of times we're not even aware how often. Psychologists call it continuous partial attention. There's always a part of us that's pulled to wanting to check, and it has a cost. It has a cost in terms of our focus, in terms of our being there for ourselves, for our spouse, for our children. We're going to develop this as I go on. Listen to this though, how subtle it gets. Even the presence of a cell phone on your desk or on the table, okay, shut off, in a number of studies, has children think that you're not as available. You know, there's that famous Gemara about Rav Preda taught a student Torah 400 times till the student got it. And one day, just before he sat down to start the 400 lessons, somebody came in and said, Rebbe, I need to talk to you after you finish with your Talmud. Teaches him 400 times, whatever that really means from Mepharshim say, it's just a number, a very, very large number. Numerous times of repetition. And then the Talmud says, I couldn't pay attention because I knew that you were preoccupied with needing to talk to that other person. That's what happens. You know, when I see a patient in my office, and I see a client in my office, I now make a show of it. It may seem a little gimmicky, but you have to do it nowadays. I take my cell phone out, I shut it off, and I put it in my pocket and say, okay, you have my attention nonstop now. Very often, little kids are kind of a little shocked. They say, could you get my father to do that? Could you get my mother to do that? They're shocked. And it's unconscious. We don't know what we don't know. You know, one of the things that's been hitting us just in teaching is the new research is showing, for example, if you were listening to this lecture and you had your cell phones out, okay? And you were checking, you say something, look, this guy Pelcovitz, he's a little entertaining, he'll tell us some stories, but you know, I could listen to him with one ear and check my texts or check my cell phone. Who knows if the babysitter is calling with an emergency, or who knows, a million different ways that our attention gets fragmented. What most people don't understand is that in a bunch of research studies they find you will lose 40% of what I have to say. So you're listening to a shiur or listening to a class while you're multitasking on your smartphone, you will lose almost half, well 40% of what's going on. But here's the important part. There's no hakar sachet. You won't know it because people don't know what they don't know. In the Smicha program at YU, we teach about 300 Smicha students. We have a pastoral psychology sequence to get them ready for the complicated world of Rabbanos now. Sort of feed the modern Orthodox rabbinate pretty much around the United States and Canada. So we do some pretty interesting stuff. One of the things we do is we get literally hundreds of vignettes from Rabbanim around the country, around the world, and then we bring in professional actors, okay? Professional actors, really famous actors. They're out of work in New York, a lot of out of work actors. They're very cheap. We bring them in. They do role plays with the students, and it's very scary for the students, a lot of fun for me. It's amazing. It's an amazing thing to see, and they really build up their skills. It builds them. We know you've already graduated a generation of it, and you already see incredible skills in terms of understanding how to really intervene in situations of abuse or marital problems or bereavement or whatever. They really build it up. And it went great. Last year, we started to realize that there's Pizur HaNefesh, right? So 1,000 years ago, the Rabbeinu Bachya said a 4-word tefillah, Hashem yatzileni mi Pizur HaNefesh. God save me from fragmentation of my soul, okay? So listen to this. Started noticing the guys had their computers out, one eye on their fellow student, being with the actor, a little bit of a scary kind of thing. But we go to the back of the room. See, one guy's buying shirts, another guy is checking social media sites, another guy is checking scores on whatever game is going on then. And I talked to the guys. I said, look, this is just so wrong. First of all, you're throwing away what's an important learning experience. We never had this before. This is the new generation coming in, new part of the millennials coming in. And I said, no more cell phones, no more smartphones, no more laptops in class. They went crazy. about 7 or 8 of the guys, they're not used to having anybody say no to them. Okay, we're going to get to that a little bit later. And they went a little nutty. And not in the way they are. They're usually very respectful. They're wonderful guys. They said, it's not fair. We have so much on our plate. We have to write our drushes. A lot of them are interns of various shoals around the New York City metropolitan area. They said, we just don't have time. And we could pay attention to everything that you're saying. Again, you don't know what you don't know. So, and they were a little chutzpahdik. I mean, not in a nice way. It was just like, okay. So, 2 weeks later, all 8 guys, it wasn't the whole class, it was just these 8 guys. They come to me after class, and they say, can we meet with you? And they said, we have to apologize. They said, the class the last 2 weeks, without our smartphones and without our laptops, we learned 10 times more than we've learned all year. They said, you were 100% right. We didn't realize it. We didn't realize it. Why? You don't know what you don't know. You just have to remember that, because you could be losing such an important part of connection with your kids. Our relationship with our kids is built on time. It's built on connection. Every night a week, a parent has dinner with their child. There's lower risk of substance abuse for that child. But when you see the pain in kids' eyes and heart when they complain to me, my dad and my mom, they're there and they're not there. We're sitting down to dinner and they're always checking, and they know it. They know it. You know, at the end of Tehillim, there's a pasuk that says, K'chitzim b'yagibar ken b'nei hanurim, compares child rearing to raising children. So the Kutzker asks, what's the connection between raising children and child rearing? And he says, the connection between child rearing and being an archer is, with an archer, the closer you hold the bow to your heart, the further and straighter the arrow goes. So too with chinuch habanim. You have to hold them close. You have to be there for them. I'm not saying to get rid of this. You need it. But to find out a way to carve out some technology-free time for yourself. We're going to go into some specifics with this, but I want to make a couple of points before we get into recommendations. Number one, I wanted to talk a little bit about social media. Did we do the handout yet? Okay, we'll do it in a minute. We'll talk about some of the dangers of something called the online disinhibition effect. But first, let me talk a little bit about first about being versus doing. Okay, start with that. Being is what we do on Shabbos. Shabbos is about being. Being is about when we're alone with our thoughts. Being is finding a place of stillness. It's about a place of spirituality and connection. Kids need that. They need a place for that, and we all need it. Problem is, if we have a continuous partial attention, always checking and always being online, okay, it's not going to be good. You have to find a place to be instead of to do. I'll share with you a study that some of you may have heard about, but it's worth reviewing. Here's the study. July 4th, 2014, Science Magazine, leading science journal. So, you do a whole series of studies, I think it was 11 studies, and they take people, they take away their cell phone, put them in a room, a chair, and 4 walls. And they say, be alone with your thoughts, think about your life. You know, what is it that Yaakov tells his family as they prepare for the fateful encounter with Esau? He says, you have to be prepared to answer the following 3 questions. Who are you? What are you going to do with what you have? And where are you going? Key questions we have to ask ourselves. Who are you? Where are you going? What are you going to do with what you have? Not bad questions to ask yourself on a regular time. What are my goals? What am I doing in life? So they take the phones away from people, and they have them spend between 11 and 15 minutes alone with their thoughts. And it's not surprising to hear everybody hates it, regardless of age. People hate it. You could be in your 70s, you could be in your 40s, you could be 10. You hate it. But here's where this study becomes fascinating, okay? They take a group of people. Same thing. Take their cell phone away, sit them down in a room, 4 walls. Just think about yourself, think about your life. But they add one thing to this arm of the study. They take an electric shock machine. Electroshock machine. They put it in the corner of the office. They say, look, no pressure. Just be alone with your thoughts. But, by the way, we have an electric shock machine here. It delivers a mildly painful shock. No pressure. But if you get bored, you could shock yourself. Do you know that 67% of the men and 25% of the women chose to shock themselves rather than be alone with their thoughts? We have to build up the muscle of being versus doing. It's an incredibly important part of life, but we have to model that for our kids. At times, you have to have times around the dinner table, times built in to your evening schedule where you model for your kids and where they have the rule of having no technology. I'm going to give you very specific guidelines on that in a few minutes. So that's the first thing I wanted to just mention, is the whole issue of being versus doing. By the way, one of the reasons this is so important is empathy requires slowness and requires being. In order to really feel for a person, in order to be nosei ba'olam chavero, a central Jewish value, you have to be there. You have to be present. If I was doing my PowerPoint, which I purposely decided not to do, if I was showing you my PowerPoint, so I'd show you a couple of images. The first image would be somebody who has a car door slam on their fingers. Everybody winces when they see that picture. In a second, it's automatic. We're automatically wired for empathy. Second, we saw it, we would wince. Then, I'd show you a brief video of a kid being treated cruelly by another kid. There's no automatic wincing there. Because that requires focus, attention, and thought. And it can't happen with peace or hanefesh. It requires slowness. Listen to this study. It's a relevant study. And then I'll end with a magnificent thought from the Baal Shem Tov. The study goes like this. Princeton seminary students. Okay, they're seminarians, Princeton University, learning how to be ministers. And they're asked to practice the speech that they're about to give. They're about to give a drasha that they're going to get a prab on. And the drasha is going to be on the need to help somebody in need that you find on the road. So you're walking on the road and you see somebody in need. And they say, okay, practice the speech. You're going to get a grade based on it in another building on the campus of Princeton. About a 5-minute walk away. That's going to be your promo. The team of psychologists have designed this study without the seminarians knowing it. They have another psychologist stage a heart attack halfway through. So they're on their way to their promo, to their test on how well they'll give the speech. The speech is about the need to stop and help somebody who's in need. Okay? And they look how many of them stop to do exactly, practice what they preach. Turns out, many don't stop. The main predictor as to whether they stopped or not was how much of a rush they felt. How much in a rush are you? You're in a rush when you're not in a place of being, when you're not in a place of focus and looking eye to eye, heart to heart. It's very hard to develop empathy. The lowest levels of empathy ever measured are in this generation of kids. Because they spend their life looking down. Empathy comes from eye contact. I was telling some of the teachers before that as I look at you and move my hand like an old Jewish man, okay? You got a picture of the motor cortex of my brain, you would see motor neurons firing. And the part of my brain having to do with this, okay? But what research in the last 15 years or so show is that as you look at me, there are corresponding mirror neurons in your brain in exactly the same place, meaning we're hardwired for empathy. When I tell you a story, which I will as we go on, I'll tell you a bunch of stories, okay? When I tell you a story, new research is showing, if you're looking at me, okay, the story is mapping, our brains are communicating. The same part of the brain that's lighting up as I tell you the story, having to do with empathy or emotion or certain lessons, that part of the brain is lighting up, but only eye to eye, heart to heart. Not if you're looking down. This doesn't happen if you're looking down. It doesn't happen if you're looking down. So I heard from Moshe Tzvi Weinberg, quoted the Piaseczner, as saying a brilliant thought in the name of the Baal Shem Tov. He says, when we say a number of times each day in the Shema, V'avadetem mehera, one of the ways of understanding V'avadetem mehera, the Baal Shem Tov says, is get rid of the rush in your life. Get rid of the rush in your life. You want to be empathic. You want to be connected. You want to raise your children to be balei chesed and caring people who one day will be able to be there with their spouses and with their children. That's your future, is teaching them that, because it's becoming a lost art. It's becoming a lost art. So that's one of the first messages I wanted to share with you. Next, I want to talk a little bit about focus before I get to a little bit on social media. But here's a little bit on focus. You know, I don't know how many people here watch CNN. Nobody watches CNN. How many people here watch Fox? Nobody wants to admit to watching Fox or CNN. That's fine. Okay. I got it. Okay. You know how on the bottom of those, by the way, it's smart to not watch these things. It just gets incredibly aggravating sometimes. But if you watch the crawl on the bottom of CNN or Fox or other TV news shows, your comprehension will fall down tremendously. Because we can't multitask. You can't do two things at once without peace or without losing what you're doing. But just want to share with you one more thought on this, on focusing, and then move on to another section. And it's that there's a loss of depth in our children if they're multitasking while they're doing their work, okay? Again, if I was showing you a PowerPoint, I'd show you a brain that's unitasking. A brain, let's say, learning Gemara. You'll see only a small part of the brain is lit up on an fMRI when you look at the picture of the brain while somebody is focusing. But it's deep. It's deep. It's focus. There's a depth. And it's a real learning. But that same brain, you take a picture of that brain learning Gemara and multitasking at the same time, checking social media sites and texting, whatever, you'll see the whole brain is lit up, but it's a mile wide and an inch deep. You have to just be aware of that, and that's why the recommendations I'll make about handling technology with your kids will make sense as we go to that. Okay. A brief thought on social media, and we're going to hand something out for you to read in a minute, but first let me start with a brief thought on social media. Listen to this. Here are the obvious problems with social media, and that the more you're on social media, the more depressed you could become, especially if you're doing it passively. We compare ourselves to other people, and you only put your best foot forward on social media. It's all kinds of interesting research, women in particular, who are on Facebook a lot and see about the terrible tsaras going on in the wider world. It could lead to saying Tehillim, it could lead to all kinds of good things and to chesed, but it could stay with you in a way that will impact on your mood throughout the day. But more importantly, for kids, as they go into adolescence, I know your kids are younger, it could become highly addictive with very little good coming out of it. Let me just share with you a very recent study from Google Analytics. Listen to this. There's a whole new way of researching this. So for example, team of psychologists now have been researching who searches for pornography the most. Turns out, throughout the United States, the states that have the most fundamentalist Christians and biblical literalists, the more frum they are, by far, the more they search for pornography online. Because it's not out there, and as a result, it goes underground, and they clearly, this new data is unbelievable. It shows, to a certain extent, we have to talk to our kids about this, because if you don't talk about it, the default setting is going to be that Kedusha is going to be very hard to maintain. We'll talk about some strategies about that as well, because that new research is fascinating. But listen to this, okay? People tell Google things they don't tell social media. So for example, in social media, the descriptors to complete the phrase, my husband is, okay, so in large-scale studies, the best, amazing, so cute, wonderful. It goes on and on and on. We don't share our blemishes on social media, which leads to this sort of fake, superficial world. On social media, it makes people feel bad, especially girls, teenage girls. Their friends, they feel left out, they feel I don't look as good as she looks. Boys don't care so much, but girls suffer sometimes by being on social media. But look what happens to the same phrase on Google. Same phrase on Google, my husband is. So you type on Google, my husband is. So the first thing that'll come up is amazing. Then the next 4 descriptors that'll come up, you can try tonight and going, I don't know if it's still going to be like that. A jerk, annoying, gay, and mean. Now, what it means is, on Google, I'm not saying anything about marriages. We don't have those kind of marriages, hopefully. But what I'm saying is that Google shows the truth. Social media is sheker. And that has an impact. What worries me most about social media and about WhatsApp is the online disinhibition effect. It's easy to be mean on social media because you don't see the hurt look on people's face. And the many doraisas of rechilos and lashon hara and onas dvarim, and it goes on and on and on. It's easy to do that on social media. And as your kids start to hit the age, many of your kids aren't at that age yet, but it starts probably, certainly in middle school. It's so important to teach your kids about how incredibly important it is to be kind. I'll share with you one story. Here's the story. There's a shiva. And at the shiva, so a 70-year-old woman had died. And by coincidence, a bunch of her classmates who had gone to a yeshiva high school together were very friendly. It was a modern school. In the modern time, it was a time they didn't have the kind of yeshivas like this. But these kids had all gone there. Since then, they'd all become quite black hat. Some of them dark black hats, some of them darker than that. But they had worn very different than they were in high school. They're sitting down and talking with Otto. And they're saying, one of the guys says, they were reminiscing, whatever happened to this guy in 10th grade? They mentioned a guy in 10th grade. And one of them says, I don't know, we've lost touch with him. But he was with us all the way from kindergarten through 10th grade. And I sort of remember we were very mean to him. We were very cruel to him. All of a sudden there's a silence in the Shiva house. One of the guys says, wow, do you think he left school because we were so cruel to him? And they designate one of the men there. You're good with social media, you could probably find him, and go and apologize for us. So in 2 minutes he's 2 towns over, living in a non-Jewish area, and he calls him up to apologize for how cruel they were to him. The man says, you can't apologize. He says, let me tell you what happened. Because of your verbal cruelty, because of what you did to me, because of the way you excluded me, because of everything you said to me when I was a kid. I had to leave school. I couldn't go to yeshiva anymore. Back then, there were no options. There were no other yeshivas to go to, so I had to go to public school. I went to public school. I lost all connection to Judaism. There was nothing there. It was a public school where I was the only Jew around. So because of that, I married a non-Jew. Because of that, my children and my grandchildren are not Jewish. He says, but I miss it. I miss it terribly. There isn't a day that has gone by since I left 10th grade that I don't cry and that I don't suffer. He says, you can't undo that. You can't apologize for that. There's nothing you could do. There's nothing you could do. Benu Yonah says, why is it that we could do tshuva for everything? We could do tshuva for murder. You could do tshuva for murder? Everything you could do tshuva for. You can't do tshuva for being mvazeh somebody barabah. Can't do. So yes, why? All you're doing, you're shaming somebody in public. That's not as serious as murder. He says, I'll tell you why. So the reason why is because when you're insulting somebody in public, the nature of somebody who's cruel to somebody in public is there's no hakaras l'chet. You don't know it. You don't know it. And because you don't know it, you can't do tshuva for something you don't know. One last story, but it's worth saying it because then I want to come to the punchline on this. I'm down south, different part of southern United States. I was about to give a talk in a Beis Yaakov style school. And the Menahel's there. And he tells me, I'm not going to believe what happened last night. He said, last night we had the 25th reunion, 25th anniversary reunion for our class, graduated 25 years ago. It was taking place in the gym, big, beautiful gym, and that was a big, beautiful building. And the former queen bees of the class, the social leaders of the class, were in the middle of the gym, all their acolytes around them. He says it was like time travel. Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. Suddenly, a limousine pulls up to the back of the gym. Chauffeured limousine coming from the local airport where this woman came in her private jet, because she's now the CEO of a Fortune 100 company. She comes in, nobody knows who she is, she's extremely well dressed. She has her chauffeur, so whatever. She's holding a little book. She goes to the center of the gym and she throws this little book into the hand of the former queen bee in the school, in the high school. And she says, read. Now this former queen bee, she thinks she's still in control. She says, who are you? You don't talk like that to this woman anymore, okay? You don't talk, you don't even think about it. She said, I said, read. The whole gym quiets down. She reads the first page. Came to school this Monday morning, found out that all the kids went to so-and-so's house, the queen bee. I was the only one not invited. Read. Next page. School today, those girls made fun of my outfit. Can't afford better. Tonight's the night I'm going to end my life. Tonight's the night I'm going to overdose on that medicine. And it's page after page after page of her feeling totally suicidal. Totally suicidal. And being on the verge of suicide and sometimes actually attempting suicide. And after about 10 minutes of this, the principal tells me it's like watching a train wreck in slow motion. With tears in her eyes, the queen bee said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And all the women around us, they were so sorry. We had no idea. But we don't know what you're talking about. We don't remember any of this. The principal said, you know something? They weren't lying. They really didn't remember. Just like those high school kids at the Shiva didn't remember the way they treated this guy. Now, why am I spending so much time on this? It is 1,000 times, maybe that's an exaggeration, it's certainly 10 times easier to do that today. When you don't see the hurt look in that girl's eye or in that guy's eye, it's so much easier to be cruel, and you can't take it back. There's no tshuva. You can't put the feathers back in the pillow. So it is essential to model for kids not being cruel on social media. It's essential to talk to your kids about what are you doing on WhatsApp. Are you chas v'shalom? Because they have to understand. Kids internalize values by knowing what you're emotional about and what you spend time on. They have to know this is like a top of your mattering map. In terms of you can never, ever do this. And we'll talk about how to set things up that way. But it's so easy to destroy lives. And we're getting it. We're getting suicidal kids now at higher levels than we ever did, triggered by this. We've had suicides triggered by this. You'll never hear about it as a suicide. You'll hear about it as an aneurysm. You'll hear about it in different ways. But we have to take this seriously. That's why I'm talking about this. Pornography is easy to talk about it. Maybe I'll talk about it a little bit, and we have to talk about strategies for dealing with it. But I'm spending the time talking about this because it's so easy. So now we're going to just do a simple example. We're going to hand out a letter written by Rabbi Bender, the principal of Darkei Torah. You don't have to take the time to read it now. And actually, I had a different version of this letter that was a little bit different. I think they changed it a little bit to make it a little bit less upsetting. But it's about a group of parents in Darkei Torah who complained on WhatsApp about a teacher. It's a teacher who was innocent, a teacher who they misunderstood some of his actions. And they totally besmirched his reputation in a way that was literally soul murder. It was like literally taking, for a teacher, it's your reputation. It's your reputation, that's all you have. It's not like you get huge amounts of money. You have passion about teaching. And here, on WhatsApp, they were bad-mouthing. And then they were calling the menahel to complain about it. That's not the version you're going to get. You're going to get a little bit of a whiter version of it. But we have to be so careful. And I'm not talking about a specific situation. I'm just saying in general. And I know it's happening everywhere. Be very careful. You may want to have some change going on in the school. You may have very legitimate complaints about a teacher, or about something going on. Never do it on social media. It becomes public then. Do you know how many derisas could be involved in that? I would not want to. It frightens me so much to think about it, to think that maybe my grandchildren one day will do it. You're dealing with, there's so many things that we don't get that we get so much more upset about, Things that are much less of a doraisa. Here we're talking about the bein adam l'chavero that will impact sometimes for dori doros in ways that you can't even imagine. It scares me. It keeps me up nights. So my kids talk to my grandchildren about this all the time. They read everything they post on WhatsApp. They read everything. And if there's anything that's in the least bit smacking of social exclusion or cruelty, they make sure that they undo it and that they take it down. In other words, because nothing on that should be private. You just have to be incredibly, incredibly careful about this. Because you can't undo it. You can't undo it. Okay, now that I got everybody upset. Okay, let me move on. Let's go on to Tachlis. We're ready for Tachlis now. So we'll give it out at some point. Whatever, you'll read it. But it gives you an example of how upset Rabbi Bender was with this. Okay, so let me move on now. So what do we do with it? First point. Best way I know to make this first point in terms of Tachlis is a fascinating experience I had in Los Angeles not too long ago. I go to Los Angeles to talk to all the kids in the yeshiva high schools about this topic, about digital challenges. Everybody. I think they really had to come. If they didn't come, they had to do more homework. I don't know. Everybody shows up at some huge auditorium. And But to get ready for it, it was fascinating because kids are very open. They're dying to hear about how to handle this better. But to get ready for it, Debbie Fox, a very prominent and wonderful therapist and leader of the community in LA and beyond, she did a whole survey online with these kids about their experience of the internet and digital challenges. I'll only share with you one question she asked, and that'll get into now the heart of the talk. She asked the following question. When you, these are high school kids, Shiva high school kids, when you have teenagers of your own, however many years it's going to be, how are you going to handle the internet differently than your parents handled it with you? Do you know that the majority of kids said, I'm going to be stricter? And then they'd write things. If I could only get those images out of my head that I never should have seen. If I could only somehow get the time back that I squandered, being up to 2, 3 in the morning, having very important conversations, like, what's up? You asleep yet? You know, things like that. But here's the research. The research shows kids want limits in this area. They're dying for limits in this area, as long as they're reasonable. And I'll present to you reasonable limits. They're asking for it. I've spoken to high school kids, sometimes middle school kids, all over, and in all communities, from Hasidic communities to communities in Australia, South Africa, around the United States, and Canada, and going to be in Europe next week doing some of this stuff. And when I get the kids to really talk, the boys will share with me how troubled they are about being so worried that their neshamas are so damaged by pornography, they don't know what to do. Young kids who feel dirty. Young kids who feel that they're beyond hope. Young kids who can't get up every morning and say, Elokai neshama shenasata bi tahorhi. Okay? And they're desperate. And they're desperate for limits. They want limits. They can't handle it themselves. They want parents to put on filtering and monitoring programs. They want it. They need it. Now, it's hard to do because we're living in an age where parents aren't so comfortable with putting limits on, but you can't raise. Used to be you could get away with it. Okay? You know, but in terms of the balance between love and limits, now it's much more limits going down the tubes and love dominating, which is great, but you can't raise kids now without saying no at times. You have to do it with seichel, you have to do it leading with the right hand, you know, you mimakareves as opposed to the small docha. I'll tell you a quick story just to lighten things for a drop. It's going to make an important point, and then I'll get to the specific recommendations. Here's the story. It's a 3-part story. Famously, on the Gemara, it says 3 times in Shas and a bunch of other times, that the key to raising children is small dochim and makareves, right? You push away with the left hand, the weaker hand, bring closer with the right hand. And that's what psychologists tell us is the key to parenting. It's authoritative parenting. By the way, it's the key to effectively controlling your child's use of pornography, authoritative parenting. Because if you're too strict, they'll go underground. They'll find you. You know, I had a group of Beis Yaakov girls tell me with the challenges that they have with this. And once other people are out of the room and I'm with them alone and they're really talking because I'm from out of town and they have no idea who they are, they say, they say, look, we go out and our parents think we don't have phones, or they think they're monitoring our social media sites, but with the money from one babysitting job, we could go to local CVS and buy a phone. I mean, you can't control it. It has to be in the context of a good relationship. So anyway, famously, Rav Simcha Wasserman, brilliant parenting expert in Beverly Hills, said, you know, what have you put into play what the Gemara says? And you take your child when you go home tonight and you simultaneously push them away with the left hand while bringing them closer with the right hand. Here's what he says. He says you turn them around. Brilliant. You turn a kid around by finding the balance. It's going to be a little different balance between left and right on your kid. So I said this once in a talk. Prominent Rav in New York comes over to me and says, you know, I went to Simcha Wasserman's school, this yeshiva in Beverly Hills, this Masifta High School. And he lived a life that brilliantly knew how to find the balance between left and right. He told me the following story. He said, we were 15, 16-year-old kids in the dormitory in the Mesivta in Beverly Hills, and we never made our beds. In the morning, we're supposed to make our beds. What 15-year-old kid ever made their bed? It just doesn't happen. So one day, we come back from a long day of learning. It's after night seder, or tomorrow. We come home late at night. We start to go to our room, and we see both of our beds are made like professionally, hospital corners. Like a hotel maid made your bed. Like a professional made your bed. We were spooked. We didn't want to go in. Finally, he says, I get enough courage to go into my room. There, on my pillow, my roommate's pillow, okay, are two beautifully handwritten notes, okay? 5 words. Beds made by Simcha Wasserman. Okay? He said, Wasserman never said a word to us, never said anything, never gave us musar. I got news for you. We made our beds for the rest of our high school career. Balance between small dochim and makaremus. So I told this story to a group in Beverly Hills a couple of years ago, and the principal of the local base, Yaakov, comes over to me. She says, look, I hear your story. She says, I knew Rav Wasserman. He was brilliant. That's exactly the way he was. But she says, I have a question for you. Today, in 2014, I think it was, if the same thing happened, would those kids have made their beds for the rest of their high school career? She bothered me. She says, think about it on the red eye. And I was thinking, I didn't know the answer. And luckily, that Wednesday night, I was asked to give a talk at a large modern Orthodox yeshiva high school on substance abuse prevention. Mandatory parents had to come. If you didn't come, you couldn't enroll your kid in the school next year. They were serious about it. I figure I'll ask them. By the way, one of my daughters had gone to Yeshiva University High School for Girls, Central High School. There they had 3 mandatory parenting programs. And when I was a parent of the school, they had a freebie in me. They had me give the talk. So give the first talk, the first year they were doing it. I give a talk. 2 days later, get a letter in the mail. Dear Dr. and Mrs. Pelcovitz, this is to tell you that you missed a really nice lecture by Dr. David Pelcovitz. If you don't come to the next 2 lectures given by Dr. Pelcovitz, you will not be allowed to enroll your daughter in this class. So I called the head of school up. I said, how do you know I wasn't listening? Okay. So I asked the parents. I asked them, how many of you think your kids would have made their beds for the rest of their high school career? 2 hands go up, but about 400 or 500 people in the audience. How many people think it would not have made a lasting difference? About 400 or 500 hands go up. The world's changed. And that's okay, but we can't because of the pervasiveness of this. And the fact that in seconds, you can do unbelievably harmful things to yourself. Hey, Ayin Roas and Shemas Kol Masech B'Seif Tachtam. Everything you do on here, there's a record of it. It doesn't go away. And I could go on and on about that. So what do you do about it? What do you do about it? Let me start with the simple recommendation. What's your name again?
Daniel.
Huh?
Daniel.
Can I use your last name? So Daniel showed me a wonderful app that he uses that is so simple to download and so simple to use for those of you who have devices at home. Do you mind showing it to us? And I just downloaded it on my phone. It's great. Well, guys, really, take your cell phones out now. So you've been hiding. Where have you been? I haven't seen you looking.
The app is called Our Pact.
RPACT. O-U-R-P-A-C-T.
So basically, it's, you have to install some application in the child phone, and you can control bedtime. Basically, what it does, the application is shut off the cell phone from a smartphone to a regular phone. So the child has access to make a phone call in case of emergency, but doesn't have the applications. So I can control which applications she or he can use, when, what time.
So he now could look at what his daughter is doing. He could totally stop her from doing anything having to do with technology while he's here. He knows what she's doing or not doing. Is that?
The application doesn't allow me to know what she's watching. I can know, taking her phone, but I can block immediately, the usage. Whenever and if I block it, I can say I'm blocking for 15 minutes, half an hour, or whenever.
So it gives you total control. You see, it's what you want to do. Thanks so much. Thank you. So what you want to do, so remember, it's called RPAC. Yeah, RPAC. And you'll see it's very, very easy interface. And it's getting to my recommendations. Now we're going to finally do my recommendations. Here's what the research shows. The research shows that not only do kids want rules, but the rules work. Rules work. Kids want it. There's a pasuk in Mishlei that says, Yaser bincha ki yesh tikva, ve'el hamiso al titei nafshecha. Put limits on your kids, there's always hope, and don't pay attention to their yelling, screaming, and crying. Here's what the Medrash says on it. Kol hamosif av yisurin al beno, Mosif haben av al love. The more limits you put on your kids, the more your kid will love you. And I see that all the time. Kids, especially when they get older, they say, why did you allow me to do this? Why did you allow me to do this? They have tinnitus. So even though they're screaming and yelling now, they know deep down that this is something that needs to happen, and they see it as love, even now. I've had multiple times in my career kids who I saw many years ago coming to me now with their children. Never wishing your child has problems with their kids, just like they give to you, because one day it'll be your grandchildren having those problems. They come to me with their kids. And when they come to me with their kids, they'll sometimes say, because the kids will have the same problems sometimes. And they'll come to me and they'll say, remember I was having a tantrum on your floor of this office 30 years ago, or however many years ago it was? Even then, I was happy my parents were saying no. Even then, I knew it was good for me. Okay? And that's one day they see it. They may not see it right away. So rules work. What works best is the balance between love and limits that we just talked about. You want to be reasonable in your rules. You want your child to want to come to you if they have a problem. Here's the recommendations. Okay? Number one is that you need to, first of all, here's global recommendations. This is taken from secular sources. Secular sources. Dr. Gold, a child psychiatrist, totally secular person in a very liberal part of Manhattan. Very respected child psychiatrist. Here's her recommendations. Keep technology out of the bedroom. You should not have technology in the bedroom. You can't control it if it's in the bedroom. And you have to model it for your kids. Your kids are only going to do what you do. You don't do it. Again, remember the famous saying of Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky's Zatzal. He says, parents aren't mechanech, we're not educators, you're mashpiyim. You know what the word mashpiyah is? Influencer. You know what it comes from? The Hebrew word for a ramp. It's what ramps down when we don't even know it. You're ramps. So what you model for your kids is what they're going to do in terms of technology. Doesn't mean you can't ever be online, but you do it with seichel. You do it with control. And you don't take your stuff, give it up. Give some stuff up. You'll be happier for it. You'll be happier for it. Number two, don't let children sleep with technology. That's rather obvious. Teach your children to ask permission to use technology. Limit weekday technology use, which will vary from kid to kid and family to family. Very important, especially I'm excited to talk to a group of people who it's not too late for any of you. It's not too late, okay? Download and buy games and apps yourself. Don't let your children do it. You know how you all just downloaded that app, I hope? Okay, because I saw it. It's a really cool app. Okay, I'm going to use it. Okay, except I don't know, my kids are all grown. I think they'll probably hate it if I use it on them. If I use it with my 37-year-old. I'm going to try. Okay. The download and buy games and apps yourself. Don't let your children do so. Okay? You know what? If you build it in when they're young, if you build it in with your kids when they have their first device, whenever that might be, I know there are going to be questions from the audience about when that is. depends on the kid, it depends on the name, it depends on a lot of things. But it's not so much what the age is as your ability to build this in terms of inoculating as opposed to isolating. Okay? Okay? Only you should have the password. They shouldn't be able to do it. They shouldn't be able to do it. Oversee YouTube. You know how many kids ended up in my office because they watched ISIS beheadings on YouTube? You know what it does to a kid, let alone an adult too, to see an ISIS beheading on YouTube? Kids can't see that. They can't see that without being plagued with nightmares and post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, this thing called mean world syndrome, where it's as if you're living in a war zone. If you do it, your kids can't watch YouTube unfiltered. They just can't. You have to oversee YouTube. Okay? You need filtering programs. You need monitoring programs. We're recommending, hopefully there could be, please, yeah?
The iPhone by nature, it has a very good filter option because if you give to a child, you can set up the not content can be shown for specific ages.
So you see, you need this kind of expertise. So we're talking about bringing it into, that's what's worked in communities. To bring this kind of expertise in, to sit down with parents, teach them how to do it. And kids, if it's brought in right from the beginning, kids will actually welcome it. Hard to do for your kids who are older already, but it's much easier to do with kids who are not in middle school yet. I'm not saying it's hopeless with kids in middle school, because kids want it, okay? Tell your children to report inappropriate games, sites, social networks to you. Don't permit technology use during meals. Designate screen-free times for the entire family every night. And make technology a privilege, not a right. I have a contract, sample contracts for different ages. I'll just read to you one, just give you a sense for it, for kids grades 2nd through 5th grade, just as a sample, okay? So it's structured like this: where, what, etiquette, and consequences, okay? What the parents agree and what the kids agree to, okay? So here's the contract, but I'm starting with when. This is grades 2 through 5. I'll do it really quickly. We'll make this available to everybody, okay? When? Mornings only after the child has dressed, brushed teeth, and eaten breakfast. They shouldn't be anywhere near their technology before that. And by the way, you may decide not to have them have a device until much later, you know? No problem with it. Secular people are saying the longer you can hold off having your kids have devices, the better it is. Much easier to do if the whole parent body does it in tandem so that your kid doesn't feel socially isolated and left out. When? After school, after homework and chores complete, okay? If they have friends over, you have to monitor how much their technology use is, okay? Maybe they could use technology, but it can't be the whole time. No technology after 8 p.m. school nights or 9 p.m. weekend nights. That's just an example. It's going to be different for each of you. Where? Public areas of the house, kitchen, basement, den. You don't have basements here, do you? Okay. Kitchens or den. Online homework must be done in common areas, and in car only for trips longer than 30 minutes. Okay, remember car trips where kids were actually tuned into you? What? Occasionally show parents what I do online. The kids actually sign this contract. Password shared only with parents, no sharing of personal info like address and birthday. Aim for sites that promote learning, and the kid needs to know, I can't believe everything I read online. Etiquette, I agree to be kind online. Tell my parents if somebody's mean to me. I'll tell my parents if anything makes me feel uncomfortable. I won't take credit for the work of others. I'll not be a bystander if witnessing cyberbullying. That's very important. You know, Slosamo, to teach your kids to not be bystander. Being a bystander is what promotes bullying. To teach them how to heroically stand up is extremely important to teach your kids. Consequences. Violating contract will result in loss of technology for half a day that week. I was just telling the teachers. The most effective consequences have 3 elements to them: unemotional, logical, and brief. That's what this is. Half a day. Doesn't have to be longer. If they repeat again, then maybe another half a day the next day. It works better. Less tafasta maruba, lo tafasta. Then this is very important. My parents agree to listen to my concerns before setting limits and guidelines, to help me learn from my mistakes, not to criticize or punish me when I go to them in need, which hopefully is what you want them to be able to do, to give me more freedom and responsibility with continued safe use. That I have, different contracts for different ages. It's all common sense. When you build it in at the beginning, before you never buy your kid any device, I don't care if it's a Kindle or if it's a iPod or iPad, whatever it is, because I know very often you won't get them a smartphone for a while. But I was just telling some of the teachers here, some of the Hanhola, that the average age that a kid gets their first iPhone in Manhattan, modern Orthodox Jewish schools has gone down to 3rd grade. There isn't a single kid in 3rd grade in those schools who doesn't have latest model iPhone. It's child abuse otherwise. Okay, let me end with the story. Okay? Maybe I'll end with 2 stories. No, I'll end with 1 story. Then we'll have questions. I know am I okay? Am I keeping you too late? You're okay? Huh? Okay. I'll end with the story. It's my favorite story on this topic. It's the story of Rabbi Avitan. Okay? Anybody ever hear the Rabbi Avitan story? Okay, listen to this story. It's Rabbi Avitan, wonderful, wonderful Rav, who, when he was niftar, he has children who were very successful, brilliant doctors, many of them. Wonderful family, chesed, amazingly special people. But he was an amazing Rav. He was an unbelievable Talmid Chacham. He was unbelievable Bal Chesed. And he really connected to people in a very special kind of way. So when he died, his kids were sitting shiva for him. And into the room walks a very distinguished looking, non-Jewish looking man. And the boys sitting shiva, they want to get up for him out of respect. You can't do that when you're an up, you're not allowed to get up. But for anybody or anything, not allowed to. But people see that these Avelim were reacting to him. Turns out he's one of the world's leading cardiovascular surgeons, not a Jewish guy. They have no idea why is the Gadol Hadar in their related fields. What's he doing in this house? Makes no sense. He's not Jewish. He sees their confusion. He says, look, I'm not Jewish. He said, but I figure this is okay. I don't know how to do a condolence call. I'll tell you all how your father saved my life, and then I'll go home. Is that okay? I say, yes, good call. Let me go. And he tells the following story. Many years ago, in his operating room in Manhattan, doing bypass surgery. In the middle of the middle of his surgery, a call comes in on his smartphone that a brother much younger than him, who was very close to him, had died suddenly of a massive heart attack. His brother hadn't been sick for a day in his life. It would be devastating to anybody, but it was particularly devastating to him, because here he is, routinely saving the lives of men double, even triple his brother's age. This karma chalonatata, how can I let my brother die? It's not rational, but he couldn't even go back to it, couldn't go on. And he goes from therapist to therapist, nothing's helping him, he's in a state of total yish. Then he remembers that 20 years earlier, he had done bypass surgery on a very holy and spiritual man, Rabbi Avitan. He thinks to himself, look, I'm not Jewish, but maybe he'll talk to me. Maybe he'll have a way to help me. So he gets Rabbi Avitan's number, calls him up, he says, Rabbi Avitan, I don't know if you remember me, but I need to talk to you. He says, so I remember you. You gave me a lot of life, you know? So he goes, sits down with Rabbi Avitan, tells him what happened, tells him, I can't go on. Life doesn't have meaning anymore. Rabbi Avitan says to him, he says, you know, every person has a divine spark that keeps them going. With the death of your brother, you lost your spark. You lost your meaning. You lost your purpose. He says, I can't tell you how to bite that. That can only come from inside. Fashresh b'masa can only come from inside. He says, well, I'll tell you what. He said, I'll meet with you once a week. Go home. You have a lot of time on your hands now. You cut down his hours at the hospital. He was hardly operating anymore. He says, go home, read with all your spare time. Come to me once a week and we'll talk about what you're reading. Maybe as we talk, we'll bounce ideas off each other. Maybe you'll rediscover your spark. He loves it. It comes to the high point of his week. 3-4 months go on, nothing's changing. Then, one day, he comes bouncing into Rabbi Avitan's office and he says, I got it. I'm fine. I'm fine. Rabbi, thanks for everything. I'm going back to work full time. I'm fine. Rabbi says, great, what happened? He said, I read a Tolstoy short story. It's called The 3 Questions. And here's what it says. It says, when you have somebody in front of you, you have to ask yourself 3 questions. Question number 1 is, what's the most important time? The answer to that is, we know the answer to that. What's the most important time, everybody? Now. Now. Second question you have to ask yourself is, what's the most important thing? You have somebody in front of yourself, what's the most important thing to focus on? We know the answer to that. Do chesed. Do chesed. You have somebody in front of you, you have to help them. Nothing more important than chesed. Olam chesed yibana. And the third question you have to ask yourself is, who's the most important person? It says the most important person is the person in front of you. He goes back to work, and if you were a fly on the wall in his operating room tomorrow, here's what you'll see, this ritual. This ritual. If you want to be on his operating team, he doesn't care if you're the anesthesiologist, the cardiothoracic surgery resident or fellow, the nurse clinician, he doesn't care who you are. Large team that does bypass surgery. They hold hands, they form a circle around the patient. And he screams out, you can't operate with him unless you do, he screams out, what's the most important time? They have to scream out, now! What's the most important thing? Do good. Who's the most important person? The person in front of us. Let's operate. That's the message I want to leave you with. We have to ask ourselves questions. We have to ask ourselves what matters. As we're mechanech our children, it doesn't take so much. The answer's here. The answer's here. Think about it. They want it. They need it. The beautiful wisdom of Chazal, you find authoritative parenting. You have to learn to say no. It's not what this generation does easily. But you need to do it. More than ever, we need to do it. So thank you, and should we end it or have questions? What do we do next? Good. Nobody has questions, do they? About your neighbors?
Do we get copies of that contract?
Yep. Yeah, I just have to be reminded to email this to, I'm happy to, I just need to be reminded. Yeah, please.
In talking to kids about the issues that are going on, how do you balance, I guess, our perspective versus their perspective, where the technology came onto us, and rather for them, where they were born into the technology.
Yeah.
How do you balance not coming off as like anti-technology from our perspective, but setting guidelines at the same time?
See, but that's what this does in a way. It says, we're not saying no technology whatsoever. I don't think that's so viable today. It might be, and I know people disagree with it. There are communities that get away with it. There are communities that really get away with very little in the way of technology, but generally not. Generally, even after that Lakewood Asifa, many people, there was creeping, use of technology. It didn't have holding power. It just doesn't have holding power because it's there. It's there. Basher Weiss says there's machlokas in the Gemara about what's the har bias. There's machlokas. Okay, we refer to it like Abraham as a mountain. We refer to it as Yitzchak as a sadeh, or we refer to it like Yaakov as a bias. And the psak is bias, a house. Why says why? Why the imagery of a bias and talking about being konatari? He says because a house has windows and a house has doors. You have to know what to let in, what to let out, how to do it, how to teach our kids how to do it. That's the essence of Kedusha. But they need help. You can't do it. It's just way too powerful a medium now to do it without help. And you want to give the help before they have a chance of being nichshel in the area, because once they're nichshel, it's very hard to put the genie back in the bottle. So you talk about it, and you may come across as not knowing it, but by the way, they can teach you stuff. They'll teach you. That's fine. But you have to ultimately be in control. And it's fine to say, look, I don't know this stuff as well as you do, but we have to be a partnership here. The key is collaborative. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, let me start with you. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, for let's say the middle school, high school age, once, let's say you have that contract, you have those rules in your house, but then there are friends that come over with their phones or their devices, and, they might have access to more than your child does.
Right.
And you don't want to be, suddenly, especially when it's in a social setting, it
Right.
can be very uncool to,
So that's
those rules
why.
to become public.
So a couple of thoughts. That's an excellent question. I don't have an easy answer. I'm going to say this. The real answer lies in parents working together. So there isn't that exposure. But in a neighborhood like this, there are plenty of kids who are not going to this school, right? I imagine. And thankfully, it's a neighborhood where everybody hangs out with everybody else. So there's nothing quite as powerful as naming the monster, talking about it, and telling them, we know, we're more strict with this than some of your friends' parents are, but we expect A, B, and C. You might want to talk to the parents of those kids about what your rules are, and it may be something that will embarrass your kid a little bit, but you try to let them know that it's okay to be upset, but that's okay. That's okay. In other words, there's nothing wrong with your kid being upset. The key is to be empathic, to try to be reasonable, to try to have them come to you. But if you don't do that, it's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. And I think parents would be understanding if they go, say, look, we have a little bit, this happens all the time. And there's some homes your kid could go to where everything's hefker. So how do you handle it with those homes? You might, you figure out a way, in a sensitive way, to name the monster and talk to that kid's parents about, that you'd be more comfortable that when your kid goes to that house that they not be allowed to. Parents are generally understanding. And if they're not, then maybe you have to question a little bit and push for that kid to come to your house, as boring as it might be. Okay? Yes?
So how much do your rules have to be in line with your child's peer rules? I'll give you an example. I wanted to set up that, after you can have your technology, after you finish your homework, after you finish whatever it was. And basically my daughter was letting me know, well, everyone studies over text messaging, and everybody does this over text messaging. And so I even told her, I said, I'm really not sure what to do, because on one hand, I feel like it's not healthy every other minute while you're studying, you're answering texts, but your texts do have to do with your Navi test, and I don't want to socially isolate you, so I'm really not sure.
Right. So that's an interesting question, and that's something that basically there are different ways of handling that. One could be to work with the school in a way that it becomes less text dependent, less dependent on that. The other way, though, is to say, fine, you're going to be on top of that, and you're going to only allow it for a certain amount of time, and to work with teachers who are totally on board with us about how to do it. It's about how to, maybe, and I know this isn't easy. I get this question all the time. It's all about collaboration. It's about, in order to do this well, you need a parent, teacher, child, shul partnership. That's the best way to do it, I think. When you do it that way, you'll be able to figure it out. I mean, I just had the situation with the community where they worked, where was it? It was somewhere. I have no idea where. This is Brooklyn, right? Yeah. But there are ways of doing it. There are ways of doing it.
And it just has
I know that's not a helpful answer.
Well, and the other question is, if there's like a class chat, like 8th grade girls, my daughter's in 8th grade, you wouldn't know that. Is there, and somebody posts something very questionable on the chat, either if it's Lashon Hara or something regarding girl.
Great, I'm
well-being.
glad you asked that. Let me just say something. See, that's what I think kids need to know, and parents need to know. It's not like reading their diary. You're not violent. They need to know that everything they do online is not private. And the parents need to tell that to kids. You know, when I, a number of years ago, I was invited to talk at Twitter headquarters in San Francisco on internet ethics. They had two speakers. I spoke about whatever I spoke about. It's a fascinating experience. Everything you're saying is being tweeted up. This is the Twitter boardroom, the source of the Torah. And the other speaker was, the main speaker I mentioned, was the chief counsel at Facebook. She gets up, and this is her opening line. She says, you know, when you check the I agree, the terms of agreement to join Facebook, you know what you're saying there? We own everything you do, okay? You could close your account. You could close it and erase it, and you'll think it's erased and closed. We have it. It lives on our servers. That's what you agreed to. And it's not going away. And there are firms, okay, I know I know that there are right now routinely, if you're hired to work in a law firm or a big accounting firm or many other places, or even when you apply to college, there are people whose job is to go through your social media history, including what you did in high school. And they will withdraw offers if you did some stupid stuff in high school, okay? Because look, you go to a big law firm, they have their choice of the top candidates from Harvard, Yale, Stanford, you know, the leading law schools around the country. They could, you know, they have 200 applicants for one position. Why take a chance on somebody who posted some stupid stuff when they were in high school? And because it shows bad judgment. We have to save our kids from themselves. And especially from a Jewish standpoint, we have to save them from doing things that are so destructive. They don't know. They have unformed brains. They don't know how. You know, it's normal to have online disinhibition. In fact, the head of the CIA, the top spy in the country, okay, General Petraeus, okay, one of the most highly decorated generals in the last generation, a brilliant, brilliant man, top spy, he knows. He destroyed his life by texting his girlfriend, his mistress, in a way that the whole world heard about it. And it destroyed everything. It destroyed his marriage, it destroyed his career, he almost went to jail, he lost everything. How did he not know? This is a top spy. There's nothing subtle about it. You're texting, everybody knows it. It's out there. It's out there. You know, Tiger Woods, it's out there. Okay? This is a top spy. How did he not know? Because even a brilliant, highly disciplined man couldn't fight the online disinhibition effect. Okay? Couldn't fight it. The fact that we get stupid when we're online. Okay? Kal v'chomer, our daughters with their unformed brains, where what kids do at that age is they can be cruel to each other and clicky to each other. You have to be on top of it. It's just a new set of skills that we all need. Yeah.
Speaking of unformed brains, so you mentioned the story of Rav Simcha Wasserman and the question of will that happen today, and you also mentioned the idea of multitasking makes it impossible to, right, if you're in class and you're focused on one thing, so then you'll go in deep, but if you're doing all kind of, can we no longer expect kids to be able to focus on one thing anymore?
So what research is showing, and teachers in the audience, and there are many teachers in the audience, thankfully, will tell you, is that attention spans over time have really fallen. I've been supervising doctoral dissertations, PhD dissertations, for about 40 years now. You know, people getting PhDs in clinical psychology and Jewish education and, you know, different areas. I've been doing it for a very long time. All my colleagues who've been doing it for a similar amount of time say that the quality of the dissertations has changed tremendously. The depth of thought has changed tremendously. People are smarter than ever. But you can almost see where they're interrupted. They're making a great point, it's a deep point, and then you say, oh, here's where she took the text. Oh, here's where she took a call. Here's where she checked her email. Oh, just checked Facebook, I think. And we'll say, the people on the committee will say, she lost it. She lost it. She was there, she was going, and then she tweeted out, you know? So yeah, I think it's a problem unless we teach depth, okay? Unless we, now again, it's less of a problem in a place like this, because kids have to sit and learn. I'm sure they're not allowed to have any devices in class, okay? We don't have it. The problem is...
Well, but as you said, even if they don't actually have it, but...
Yeah, but still, you know, but at least for part of the day, they're forced to have the Uvadatem Hera. They're forced to. And it's not like that in the whole world. That's the gift of being in a place like this. Thank you, everybody. Thanks. Marvin Schultz.